Hello friends, welcome to SR Academy.
Welcome to SR Academy. Empowering minds, igniting curiosity. Your gateway to knowledge unleashed. Let's get started.
The next topic we are discussing is cellular components. So cellular components are nothing but whatever the components or whatever the cell consists. Okay, that we'll call it as a cellular components. So usually we have from macromolecules, biomacromolecules, like we are having the DNA, proteins, okay, and all these things can be an example of these particular cellular components, including the different structures, all those things that we will discuss in this particular topic. So cellular components are the complex biomolecules and structures of which cells and thus the living organisms are composed. That means the living organisms has got cells, right? Now these cells has got some complex biomolecules and structures. So both these biomolecules, complex biomolecules and the structures, we can call them collectively as cell components, like ribosome in terms of structures, like DNA, RNA and proteins in terms of biomolecules, nucleic acids and all, and then the structures like just now I told you as ribosomes, all those things, they will come into picture. So the cellular components are nothing but what? The complex biomolecules and the structures of which cells and thus living organisms are composed of or made up of. We know that the cells, what is the definition of the cell? Cells are made up are nothing but structural and as well as functional units of life. So both structure and functions is very important for this particular when you are talking about the cell components. Also, in whoever is helping the cells to get the structural features or characteristics, they also play an important role, and whatever the molecules help cells in order to do their function, they will also play a very important role. These are called as functional units. So that's why they will be cell components, major cell components. So structural and functional. So cells are nothing but what? Structural and functional units of life. Now the smallest organism are a single cells, while the largest organisms are assemblages of trillions of cells. Take for example of human being, who is having more than 100 trillion cells. Okay, so from one single cell organism to the 10 to 100 trillions of cells you can consider. Okay, so it will involve a lot of components, right? So DNA is found in nearly all living cells. Each cell carries a chromosome or chromosomes, so having a distinctive DNA sequences that we know in mitosis, meiosis and all we have studied. So examples include macromolecules such as proteins and nucleic acids. So under nucleic acids we have DNA and RNA, right? So biomolecular complexes such as ribosome and structures like membranes, organelles, all these things are nothing but cell components, right? So while the majority of the cellular components are located within the cell itself, some may exist extracellular areas of organisms. So what do you mean by extracellular and intracellular? Intracellular is nothing but inside the cell. These cell components has to be inside the cell, right? So most of the 90% of the cells components of the cell will be inside the cells only. That is called as intracellular area, whereas extracellular area is nothing but outside the cell or on the cell walls, right? So there will be a lot of components, like many enzymes will be there, many components, many macromolecules will be there, which will be responsible for a particular function. They are there because they have got some job to do, right? So but they still belong to the cells, right? So that's why extracellular areas also there are few components in the in particular organisms. So cellular components may also be called as biological matter or biological material. Why it can be called as a biological matter? Because the components itself contains functional subunits. So biological matter. Whereas biological material, why it is called as biological material? Because these particular, for example, ribosome, okay, if you take it for example of organelle, and even whatever the things we mentioned, membranes. What are the membranes? So membranes is again it act as a material, right? So all these ribosome, all everything, they are the few things which can be utilized for particular function. So we are having biological matter, so cellular components may also be called as biological matter or biological material. So if one mark question comes, what are biological matter or biological material in this particular module, then you understand that we are talking about cell components, right? So most biological matter has the characteristics of soft matter, right, being governed by their relatively small energies. So we know that most of the cells inside our body are soft cells, right? So hard cells are very few, okay, except in for bone and cartilage. Every cell, other cells are made up of soft matter or soft components, right? That cell contains the soft materials or small components. That's why we are calling it as a characteristics of soft matter. So that will be governed by the relatively small energies. Relatively small energies, now we know that for that we need to go for the biochemical pathways or biochemistry, where the different pathways come into picture. ATP, ADP, NAP, ADP, AMP, all those things will be there, and NADH and NADPH, all those things will be there, where the electrons will be released, all other stuff. So all known life is made up of biological matter. Whatever the life we have known as a life on this earth is made up of biological matter. There are some hypothetical or theoretical or fictional life forms are also there. We call for them usually the carbon based, cellular based, organic based, biological, or even just they call it as simply living. Okay, as some of the definition of the life exclude hypothetical types of biochemistry. So in order to interpret these kind of statements, so sometimes what happens, whatever the things are living are made up of cells, right? So sometimes what happens, there will be some particular certain reactions, like carbon based materials will be there, or cellular level some molecule or a matter will be there, whereas organic matter will be there. So sometimes they are having some function. Because of their function, we call them as they are theoretically or fictionally they are in living form. It's not because they are able to do the tasks, or how the living things will do, like self repair, that, this and all, but still they are active in some particular for a particular function. So carbon based life or cellular life, organic life, biological life, or even simply living. So as these are most of the definitions or some of the definitions of life that exclude hypothetical types of the biochemistry. So that was it. The next topic we are actually having as a measurement of the tissue characteristics. So for that you can simply write ECM and cellular components, but what you have to do is you should remember that you should be including whatever the measurement of cell characteristics we discussed. Now introduction you write that, instead of cell you have to write tissue, and then you discuss about ECM and its components, soluble and insoluble components briefly, and you can also write about cellular components. Those are nothing but if you are measuring all these cellular components or components of the ECM, that itself is a tissue characteristics, measurement of the tissue characteristics, that you can write for the 8th topic. The 9th topic, mechanical measurement and physical properties, that you can just speak about ECM. We are having soluble and insoluble components and their properties, everything is mentioned in that topic. Okay, so any queries, if anything you are having any queries or any doubts, there is an email ID which is given in the every videos of this playlist. Go through the particular email ID, take that and just write a mail that if you have any doubts. In future, when the exam is nearing or something like that, like external exam and all, I will create a WhatsApp group where you can join. If you require any notes or materials to study, then I guess that I can do tomorrow only, but I will do, and then I will add it in the next video's description, so that you can use that particular group for notes and other stuff. Okay, so I hope you understood the module 1. In module 1, quick glance, if you want me to do, then what are the things we studied? Around 9 different topics. Introduction to tissue engineering and basic definitions we discussed, the 2 definitions we discussed, the current scope of development we discussed, then using therapeutics, cell as therapeutic agents we discussed, where the cells can be used to treat the particular damaged cells and damaged organs, damaged tissues. Next, cell numbers and growth rates. We discussed about different numbers of cell numbers of various organs like kidney, liver, pancreas, and even the heart tissues and all. Then we discussed about growth rates, and then measuring growth rate at the different tissues will grow in different levels or different rate. So some tissue grow, some cell differentiate faster, some cells differentiate a little slower. So that's why that cell number and growth plays a very important role. Then the measurement of cell characteristics. Under that we discussed morphology, cell viability, motility, and function. Motility is nothing but that migration, right? So next, under the measurement of the tissue characteristics, here it is measurement of cell characteristics, here it will be tissue characteristics. Here the introduction will be the same. Under that we discussed about the appearance, cellular component, ECM. We discussed about cellular components, ECM component, that is also repeated this thing about the mechanical measurements and physical properties. So that's it, this module, and we will discuss we will start the module 2 soon from the next class. I hope you understood the module 1.